Ladies and gentlemen, Xenos, somebody I'm a big fan of his content, and I do spend time lurking in his community, occasionally chatting. But I like that he has a different perspective of Final Fantasy XIV than me. I like that he spends a lot more time in things like Savage. It's really fun to watch him respond to like WoW raiders because he brings a level of insight that's kind of like watching somebody be like an announcer for something, where they can catch you up on context. When he's talking about how much they like don't get a certain mechanic, a lot of times I don't get it either, and so he's like a little mocking about them, like, oh, they don't even know about this mechanic. I'm like, I don't either. And he's like, how do they not know? And then he explains it. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And so I do appreciate that. In the Guild Wars community, there's somebody like Muckluck that puts out guides that's like, if you can't do this, you're basically dumb. It's really easy. You just don't stand in this circle. And then I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And then, of course, my first time in the raid, I stand in the circle, and I'm like, oh, I'm dumb. And so just be warned, his content does come with a disclaimer that has a lot more foul language than mine. And so just be aware of that. And let's get started. This is him going through the patch 6.2 live letter, where he is coming at it from a different perspective, because you got to think, with all the Savage stuff, I was really interested in seeing him consume this, and he has a couple of notes about his views on story that actually largely align with mine.
In high difficulty, another dungeon being normal mode, the first dungeon Criterion being extreme. Whoa, and the second one is Savage? Holy shit. Yo, this sounds awesome. So if you die halfway, more ball, we gotta continue with... Whoa! What? So is it just like you get one life and that's it?
Woo! He's so loud. He's so loud.
All right, new dungeon. The Fell Court of Troia. FF4 reference. Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah. Ooh, yo, is that the dungeon? Dude, that looks sick. Too bad it's gonna be piss easy. Looks like...
That's exactly how I feel about dungeons. They are such cool narrative devices. They have evolved into being just brilliant cinematically. We're like on something. We're flying through space. We're teleporting. We're being called out to by these huge NPCs. The music's amazing. The bosses are immersive. But like, there were multiple dungeons this expansion already where the whole party died, and as a warrior, I just soloed a boss that I've never seen. Like, hit me in the face a little, dungeon. And so I'm really looking forward to them adding this kind of extreme and savage concept of dungeons, because I hope that's a chance to say, what if that's how I want to experience it narratively? It's just, sometimes it's just easy. And maybe the answer is to switch to a job I don't know, because I get wrecked on jobs I don't know. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe I should just spin the wheel and see what job I have to go through this dungeon blind on, because doing it on a warrior, I can just tell you I'm not scared of this at all.
Manor, a bit more cleaned up. It's not Manor at all, my house. Okay. That's where the GMs live. Ooh, that's where they are before they go to work. We have Noob Trial, of course, but can't tell you about them. Just see that number of question marks isn't related to the act.
So right now he's actually reading the Discord from the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit community. They have a translations thing. And so if you guys want to go there, that's who does all the live translations for the vast majority of live letters that are in Japanese only.
Actual name. This will be a secret until the release. Second part of Pandemonium raid about Savage. Okay, new raid. Pandemonium Abyssos. Savage raid will be released 1 week after patch 6.2. Okay, all right. So this is really good. And I want to talk about why this is good. Every single fucking patch, I feel rushed to do the primal. Well, I don't even fucking do the primal. Basically, I clear the raid tier before I do the fucking primal. Okay, this is so good. Now let me tell you who's mad. Okay, some of like the world first guys are mad because they're like, well, that gives people a week to prepare and a week to data mine and all this shit. Okay, well, let me tell you, shut the fuck up. You and I both already know.
Stop designing content for the top 0.3%. I love watching the race for world first. I love what it is. But like, I hope that no decision is ever made because of Race for World First. Ian Hazakostas, the Yoshi P of World of Warcraft, has said that the World of Warcraft team does not, will not, and should not be involved in the Race for World First. Are they aware they exist? Yes. Are they aware that that level of visibility affects their game? Absolutely. Do they enjoy watching it themselves? Probably. I know Yoshi P has said they love watching the Race for World First and watching, especially when they're like, we definitely know how this mechanic works, and the devs are like, no, you don't. They love that. They're glad to be a part of it. you can't design the content solely for that, because that's 1 week out of the years of life, especially in Final Fantasy, where synced minimum item level, this stuff lives on. These mechanics live on. Nicknames for mechanics in this community are based on the first time that mechanic is introduced. They survive. You cannot design it for the very first week. Now, World of Warcraft has a harder job because they introduce like 9 to 13 bosses at a time. They have an inconsistent patch schedule. So they use a PTR, then that PTR ends up not always being something they respect. So they end up releasing content that isn't even tuned based on how the feedback worked, because in theory, you would be setting a ceiling at the best your playtesters could be. As opposed to Final Fantasy, all Savage content is cleared prior to releasing by the dev team, which means you own the devs test team, not necessarily the devs themselves. There's a specialized, they're very talented players, but they're the cap. They're the cap. That's the limit. So you only have to be as good as the testers at Final Fantasy. So theoretically, there might be players in the world who are better than the people who test this content. So Savage particularly, Yoshipi has said that he believes anyone, that doesn't mean everyone, anyone should be able to clear this content. But there is something fun about being in it when it's new. There's something fun about being in it, whether you're a prog raider or not. And so this delay is something that has been asked for over and over. Most recently, the big ask was in October. I believe it was Miztech asking at the media tour, can you delay this? We delay it by 2 weeks for the expansion launch. Can you delay it in the 0.2 and 0.4 patch?
That the day one, okay, day one, there's already triggers, already data mine. There's so many pictures. We're all in the same data mine discords, okay? I know we are. I fucking see you in there. So don't pretend like waiting a week longer is gonna be some devastating thing, okay? It's not. It's not. So this is awesome. This is amazing. Hopefully they keep this. It's been 9 years since FF started, and the content release timings have always been the same. Yeah, it's true. Normal and Savage will release on the same day. Savage is delayed by 1 week after Normal will release. We're aware that especially for World Race, delaying Savage will influence this a lot. We simulated a lot of things that this would influence. Please consider this a test run. This means that, look, we don't care about you guys and you guys don't matter, and thank fucking God. You know why I hope they keep this, man? Because when the Savage comes out, okay, when the normal modes come out, I want to be able to do the normal modes. I want to be able to do the primal. I want to be able to watch the story. Never thought I'd be fucking saying that shit, but I am a changed man, okay? I am the kind of man.
Oh, this is how I feel. As a longtime story skipper, it feels weird to be like, just let me stop and enjoy it. I want to take my time. I want to watch the cutscenes. I want to talk about it with you guys. I want to speculate. I want to have some emotions. I don't want to feel like I need to rush through it. I love it.
Now, indiscriminate kills, I get an achievement. That was my 100th rap.
I didn't do it for Savage. I did it because, like, back in the day, we used to put out dungeon guides. And I know, like, the Xenos hardcore community are like, why the heck would you have ever needed a dungeon guide? But there are people that enjoy this game for story and are nervous about going into content not ever having seen it. And so being shown 5-6 minutes of just like, all right, when he puts his hand up, just don't be on that side of the arena. Being shown that makes them more comfortable going to that first time. Now they can do it with trust, and so we don't make those videos anymore because there's been a way for narrative-based players to be given this content. But we used to make dungeon guides. I used to wake up, blast through the story, put out the dungeon guide, and then leave for work. And now it's like, no, we're good. We're good. And I want to enjoy the story at my pace. And so the idea of, like, I don't even feel like I can go watch the world first race until I have at least finished the raid series myself, because the bosses are spoilery. And I never used to care about that. I was like, a cool looking boss, a cool looking boss. I still don't know why I'm fighting him, so it's good enough. I'll enjoy it when I want to enjoy it. But now I'm invested enough that, like, I don't want to know really mostly what the 4, 8, and 12 boss are. I don't want to know. What if it's something tied to something in the story? What if it's a person? I don't want to know. And so the idea that I have 1 week to get through Pandemonium before I go watch the Savage fight. I mean, as a longtime story skipper, I'm doing Heaven's Word for the first time in August. Deliverum, Savage, I mean, I'm not Deliverum, DSU, Dragon Song kind of told me some things. Now, that's my fault for not having been through really old content. But with Savage, that's not my fault. And I should be allowed to watch these people who are incredible players enjoy this. And I should be allowed to enjoy it myself. And this creates a time for that. This is good for everybody. The handful of people who feel that they come out behind this, like, this is like people who are like, well, I don't like data center visit because I used to really be able to extract money out of my server because I had a chokehold on the market. And now Yoshi P is saying that I can't have my individual chokehold and everybody doesn't have to pay me. Screw you, man.
That wants to go on the media tour. I don't use mods. I don't use ACT. I don't do any of that shit. I am a content respecter and I am a lore master. So I like to take things slow and enjoy myself. Plus, this gives people more time to take the week off too. That's probably the biggest thing, honestly. They are both requests asking for and against it, so we'd like to make this a test run. Whether or not the next Savage will also be moved by this 1 week will be considered based on the results of the test run as well as player feedback. I hope everybody comes together and we all agree on this, okay? Because the amount of like...
If anything, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Same as the 0.0. I don't care. If anything, 2 weeks. We'll have an extreme in there. Like, if anything, longer. That's going to be my complaint. I can already tell you. Screw 1 week. 2 weeks. We've got longer patch cycles. I estimated them at the number of weeks. I got that estimate wrong. It's late August. You got, it looks like they actually mean 4 months, not 16 weeks, because months are 4.3 weeks. So if anything, patch cycles are even longer than I had counted them out to be before they gave us the kind of rough patch date on this. So 2 weeks. Screw the 1 week. That's my one complaint. I haven't even seen it yet. I haven't seen it. I don't need to test it. 2 weeks. I'm already asking for more. You gave a mouse a cookie. Longer delay.
Like seething and molding and all that shit from like, you know, some certain people is just going to be phenomenal. This is a really good idea and I really hope that they stick with it. Okay. There are no downsides to this, only upsides. There's no downsides to this whatsoever. Okay. This is good. This is good. I am for this 100%. Ooh. Okay. For the people that are complaining, it's mostly like world first raiders. It's mostly like world first people, not even world first people, but just like world proggers. Not one single argument that I have seen has
the people who like the prog, the people who like not having seen anything. But in theory, if they're world first racing, they may be using data mined stuff. They're checking other people's streams. Those are the people who most would be offended by this, that have the most legitimate claim to this thing that affects 99.99% of the player population positively, are people who now are going to have to actively avoid the internet for a full week because they want to see this totally without having seen it. They want to see it totally blind. I have no vision of these mechanics. I have no vision of this. That's their goal, which means no data mining. So like the people who want to go first, they're not going in that blind. They are doing it on normal, and then they've got a 9th man. He'll talk about it.
Has been legitimate. Their arguments have been what your example was, could predict Savage mechanics from normal. That one you can already do because the normal just has the AoEs, indicators, and the fucking Savage doesn't. And then they add extra mechanics. That's it. You're gonna have like a 9th man or a 10th man. You're gonna have them have your VODs from the normal modes, and as you're doing the turns, they're gonna be looking at that shit, and they're gonna be fucking making up potential strats and shit, man. No, the Savage fights are not.
Right, so the only people that are negatively impacted are the people who wanted to do this truly without vision. Anybody who's got somebody else studying or all that, they're just mimicking this in real time.
Quite different from normals. No. Are they? Have you done the raids here? Are they really that different? The only turn that's like massively...
I've only cleared 6 Savages in the game. You know, while relevant, I did 9 through 12. I've done 1 and 2. I only did 1 lock out of 3, and I just haven't been back. And so far, in my limited experience, I agree with this expert here who's referring to it, is that it is just like 12, for example, E12. Are there phases? The final boss of the tier has like an additional thing that you're supposed to be totally without information for. That's part of it. But up until then, yeah, if you want to practice E12, you're like, I'm not dodging the mechanics well. Go back and do normal without getting hit. Do normal without getting hit. Now, what happens if you get hit? You still get the clear. But like, if you want to practice for Savage, go do normal and don't get hit. Go do your opener in normal. It's not perfect because there's additional phases and mechanics put in, but it gets you through a lot of the really hard stuff. It doesn't help you for stuff like Lions, which is why it's such a hard phase, because you don't have that prep. But it helps you with an awful lot of the stuff getting to that point.
Different is like the last one. Like even the 3rd turn of this raid tier, it literally showed you where to put the butt sacks. Like the normal modes tell you almost like 90% of the fight. There's some stuff that they didn't, but a majority.
Now, chat's bringing up when we got to P1, were they complaining about waiting? It is possible somebody can find a clip of Xenos complaining this way. It is absolutely possible that somebody can find a clip of him complaining. Keep in mind that P1S was basically a year after E12S. Because of the COVID delays and the expansion and how long a 0.5 cycle is and all of that, you had an enormous gap. So to say that during a consistent patch schedule, that extra 1 week, I don't think is that big of a problem. I think any frustration around the 2 weeks post Endwalker launch was for story skippers that are in the game for Savage and Ultimate style content who had been given nothing. We were originally supposed to have an Ultimate in 5.3, then it was delayed to 5.5. A lot of people were like, I think this is better. This is going to help that gap between 12 and 1. This is going to help. This is going to be a huge benefit. And then when DSU got pushed from 5.5 to 6.1, it left an enormous portion of the progression high-end based community with nothing to do. So I think that's a little different. I think for 0.2 and 0.4, a 1 week delay absolutely makes sense.
Majority of the fight is literally just the normal mode, just harder. It just hits harder, just more punishing. New Unreal Trial. Yo, I heard this was a good one. Oh, shit. Okay, now when this guy came out, he was tough, dude. I bet you this guy's gonna shit on Party Finder. Yo, I got a guide for this. Let's see the guide. Xenosis Vex Sephiroth. March 1st, 2016. Look at this date.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to my guide on Sephiroth Extreme.
Yeah, watch this guide, everybody. Watch this fucking guide. You want to be prepared, okay? All right, it's 11-minute guide. Your guides are the best I've seen. Hell yeah, thank you. Go to guide channel, thank you. Like 6 years ago, dude. I'm just going to like all these. Hell yeah, thank you guys very much. Okay, see, this is the guide right here. See, notice how we got 2 warriors in here. 2 warriors. You know why? Because that's man mode. Man mode. Ain't no...
I love Warrior so much. And it's fun to watch old content like this. I'm glad he gets a laugh out of his. We reacted to a post from 4.57 World Visit being introduced earlier today, and watching my old face go through it. And some of the things I said I agree with. Some of the things that like Brian and I kind of predicted, I'm like, oh, those complete noobs. They had no idea what laid ahead of them as they were building into Shadowbringers.
Pussy ass, bitch ass, Paladin, Dark Knight bullshit. We ain't no simp tank, and we ain't no emo fucking tank, okay? We got man mode tanks. There it is. Watch the guide. Let's continue. New Unreal Trial. This was so difficult. That's true. Back when it came out, it was very hard. There's an Earthshaker mechanic, right? Where 2 people get targeted. There used to be proximity damage in that, but we...
No, I know where the Earthshaker is. I don't just think I just don't think it was proximity.
You know what it was? I think it's because I played Warrior and I could just stand right next to the boss like a fucking man, like a fucking badass. Because proximity, because fuck proximity. I'm playing man mode. That's why I could just stand wherever the fuck I wanted. Tanks also melting during the ad phase. A lot of adjustments were needed. Oh my, you mean they nerfed it? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you
Come on, man. They nerf every Unreal because the goal of Unreal is not to add something that is more punishing than it was the original time. The goal is this nostalgia trip to take people down to be something that is achievable. They are, in my opinion, supposed to be like Diamond EX difficulty. I mean, that's just my opinion, but especially like look, people have done nothing but laugh at Ultima. So I don't know why he's surprised by this. I don't know why he's surprised.
kidding me right now, Yoshi P? You pussified Sephiroth? Come the fuck on. Continue to...
Something for everybody. Don't worry. I hope these Savage Dungeons slam his face all the way into the ground in every way that he wants it to. He wants that dungeon step on me energy. That's totally fine. I hope that the Savage mode is Delibrum Savage, where like you're like, oh my god, our whole free company fell apart over this, because that's what I think that group of people wants. And then it steps down from there all the way to Variable Dungeon for people that are like, that sounds awful. Like, that sounds awful. I don't want any of that. I just want to go through it with an NPC. I want to take my screenshots. I want to have a couple of narrative choices, a little bit of story agency. And so I love that this new variant and criterion system has, like, story mode, extreme-ish mode, savage, like Delibram savage, screw you, no res mage, get out of here. Like, I hope that is hard. I hope it is like watching people, if any of you have ever watched like somebody who gets to the very top of Palace of the Dead and like 2 floors out just gets yeeted, and like you can feel your stomach turn, you can see them have a little bit of that, like you just stubbed your toe and like your eyes are swelling, like you want to cry and like you can't even get the tear to break. You're like, it would just feel better. Like when you feel sick to your stomach and you want to be sick and you can't be sick, you're like, I think I would feel better if I was crying. Like, that's part of that. And for anybody that says that sounds awful, then don't do solo deep dungeon. That's what I want the Savage dungeons to be. Not because I want all dungeon content to be that inaccessible, but because I think it's amazing that we're moving into an era where we have that level of spectrum, where we can go all the way from, I just want to just get some popcorn, I want that pyromancer emote, we're hanging out, we're having a good time in this nice chill space, all the way up to edge of your seat, sweaty hands. Like, I want this game to offer that. I just want it to have something for everybody.
Improvements to main scenario quest. Duty support added for Snowcloak, Keeper of the Lake, Psalm All, the Ari, and the Vault. What was duty support again? Is that like the trust system? That's like the trust system, right? Where you get those basic NPCs. This is as far as we got this time. These 5 dungeons. There will be more in the future. Okay. Even old content is evolving.
I thought that was going to be more. Some of you actually said that's actually right on pace. I thought it seemed like a small number of lists. I didn't have the duty list in front of me. It's because a lot of the dungeons that I was thinking would be included in the list are optional. As a story skipper, I just did all the dungeons because I liked all the dungeons, but that meant that like I never really recognized which ones were MSQ required and which ones were optional. So it turns out that's actually a pretty substantial level range that they covered. They just didn't, they skipped all the optional ones, which meant that the list cut way down. So they're actually apparently right where they were on pace is what I've been told.
Oh, there's a picture. Ooh.
Okay, he doesn't recognize that this is a big change. This is a big change because these do not look like the duty support NPCs. They look like people we recognize.
Okay. A lot of our staff play the game before joining the team. They have a very good understanding of what changes, additions will be enjoyed by the community. The Steps of Faith will be a solo instance battle now. Holy shit, God bless. Man, the Steps of Faith is awful. Why did they ever put that in the game? Continued improvements on the
They put it in the game because they were trying something new. It never happened again because I don't think they liked it either.
main scenario. Okay, that's good. New Steps of Faith.
That's how MSQ dungeons were. People were like, how did they think this was a good idea? Well, if you go back without hindsight and you say, what if we made like big, long, more narrative dungeons with like meaningful cutscenes, voice acting, powerful bosses, and those were how we wrapped up an expansion. As an idea, it kind of sounds awesome. In practice, it wasn't awesome. And so they did it in ARR and then they never did it again. So when people were like, well, you know, they like MSQ dungeons. If they liked them so much, why didn't they keep doing them? We never did it again. We had Castrum, we had Praetorium, we never did it again. The final dungeon of Guild Wars 2, the base Tyria expansion, is a Praetorium-based experience. You have built up to this massive narrative payoff. And it's going to tell you about the meaning of the world and the way it's shaped and why cultures live where they live and why cities are the way they are and why the people must come together, why their grand companies function the way they do, and why their version of Ascians, these elder dragons, and it's amazing. And then you get in this instance that feels old and clunky and outdated and clumsy, and it's awful. But it's an amazing story, and they were trying to come up with a unique way of telling it. So I don't begrudge them for trying Steps of Faith. They never did it again. And I think that as we go to start to say, well, a new player shouldn't have to play through, it shouldn't be like, well, I went out to this restaurant because I was told that it would have this really incredible food. And actually, before I'm allowed to eat their good food, I have to go back and eat. I have to eat that lasagna that chef made for their mother when they were 13 years old and they put too much salt in because they misunderstood tablespoons and teaspoons. I have to eat that first. No, you're allowed to jump to the way things taste now. I don't want to have to go back and like, oh, well, you got to try 6 different dishes from when they were in culinary school. No, I don't want to do that. And so I love that they're going back and saying, hey, I admit we've learned a lot. This was best intentioned. They were hardworking people. Many of them maybe even still work here. But, maybe this isn't our best foot forward, and we can go back and make new players not have to walk up both hills, both ways in the snow just because I did.
Vamp Duty, Thorn March. God fucking bless, dude. Thorn March was garbage. Was so fucking...
I like it, and I want Thorn March Ultimate. And as a person who's never cleared an Ultimate, I can just picture Xenos raging about like a blue mage phase yeeting them. But I'm just there to eat some popcorn. I'm not gonna clear it, but like I think the Moogle weapons would be awesome. I'm not gonna get one, but I would love to watch him just utterly lose it over this.
Bad. For being the first 8-man trial in the story, Thorn March is very difficult. We completely revamped it. Thank God. A veteran might be disappointed by the content now. No one is disappointed that you changed Thorn March. Okay, if anyone's gonna be disappointed, it's the fact that you didn't fucking completely remove it. Oh, new battle content.
Whoa. Thorn March is significant. Thorn March, first of all, redefined the way I think about what a primal is. I'm going through 2.5 this week for my first time, so Thorn March is fresh in my mind because it's the first 8-man trial. Thorn March and Lady Iceheart are the 2 moments that gave me insight into what a primal is. Having done Shadowbringers and Endwalker as my first narrative experience, I had an impression of what a primal is. And going back, all of a sudden ARR made me question something about Endwalker. And so, Thorn March is really significant in what it represents. And the ability to bring in different classes and different phases and the order of things, I think is really fun. I would love to see it brought back. So I disagree with him here as a casual player. I like it. And I like that the Moogles are just giant trolls.
Ooh, variant dungeons. Overview. Variable difficulty dungeons, previously introduced as Criterion dungeons. Level 90, casual play 1 through 4. No role restrictions, job changes permitted. Enemy strength determined by party size. Okay, so this is cool. This is a neat idea, but this is not what I want. This is not a Savage dungeon, but I will do this. This seems like a cool piece of content. Oh, depending on your decision and movements inside the dungeon, there are going to be different routes of progression. Okay, well, let me touch on this for a second, okay? Depending on your decisions and movements inside the dungeon. So I feel like that there'll be different paths, which is pretty cool. However, there will be an optimized route, and you will only probably go that route. So while this is going to be cool the first few times you do it, I think after probably a couple days, maybe 3-4 days or some shit, it's going to be just one route. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be, maybe you're going to be forced to do different routes. Routes on progression, branches based on player action. So the first one is an old doc. Overview continued. Variant dungeon number 1, the Sildin Subterrane. Explore the depths alongside a certain someone. Ooh. Experience a different story depending on your chosen path. Oh, this is cool. Oh man, you know what this is like, dudes? These dungeons sound like Guild Wars 2 dungeons. In Guild Wars 2 dungeons, you could go different routes, man. It was fun.
Guild Wars 2 across the board through their base Tyria expansion, because we're kind of comparing. That's what I have. So I don't know how much the future expansions. I haven't gotten there yet, but I've cleared their base. I've cleared their ARR. In their ARR, there were choices based on the Grand Company equivalent you picked. They're not called Grand Companies. And throughout the story, imagine Project Archon in ARR. So we're going to talk a little bit of ARR, minor spoiler here. So Project Archon is at the end of A Realm Reborn. Base A Realm Reborn. Base 2.0. I haven't done their patch content yet, which they call Living Seasons. I haven't done Living Season 1 yet. And so 2.0 to base Tyria, there are moments where you have to make choices. And so at the end of it, you did, in order, Cape Westwind, Castrum Meridium, Castrum Praetorium. And before that, leading up to that, there was another castrum that was done as like open world content. You would choose if this were done the way Guild Wars is done, you would be part of those offensives. And so it would give them a chance to narratively say, we're going to surprise the Asians. We're going to do all these things simultaneously timed. So, as you play through the story, you would choose to be aligned with one of the city-states grand companies. So maybe you're with Merlwyb and the Maelstrom, or you're with the Immortal Flames and Raubon. But then, at a later point, and that would affect things. That would change dialogue choices. It would change the way, if you're in a palace room and the queen is talking, maybe they talk to you differently because you're there on behalf of the adders. As opposed to, oh, you're a good friend of ours because you're part of the Immortal Flames. And then, when you go to do the final attack, Alphinaud's laying it all out, you have a choice of, do I go to Cape Westwind or do I go to Praetorium? And what is really cool about that is, in a game that's closer to like World of Warcraft where you level up your alts, if this game had encouraged you to go back and level through story more than once, as opposed to New Game Plus granting literally nothing but the literal personal experience of having done it, there is no in-game experience or anything, it would encourage you to say, you know what, I went through the story as a warrior, I aligned with the Immortal Flames, and I was with Raubon, and then he said that Praetorium was going to be the most dangerous, and so I went and fought Praetorium, as opposed to maybe Cape Westwind was supposed to be a little more strategic, and we had to be sure that the communications were cut off, and, a little more technical or something like that, and that was going to be led by whoever. You would have a choice, and every playthrough of the story creates a little bit of like choose your own adventure. Now afterwards it all remerges. So afterwards, no matter which choice you pick, Project Archon is a success. We beat back the Imperial and we end up at the same credits. What I'm hoping these dungeons do is give them a chance to explore that, because there are a lot of times in Final Fantasy's story where it feels like the world is about all of these ongoing conflicts, but for some reason there's always one path to choose it. And sometimes you wonder, like, you go into a dungeon or something like that, and a scion says, hey, I'm going left to explore this. You go right to explore that. And you're like, but I want to know what's going on with you. And so hopefully this is a chance to go in and say, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to explore this library and look for this lost knowledge. And we're probably going to get attacked while we're there. Or I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pull these levers to like shut down this ancient waterfall or whatever, or it's going to like flood the library. And so and there are two groups, and you either go left or go right. Whichever way you don't go, a random group of like adventurers or something will go, so that at the end of the dungeon, both got done. But you can choose to experience one or the other, so that to experience the whole thing, it encourages multiple content playthroughs, which helps us justify when I'm running the same dungeon over and over and over again for a 4-month patch cycle.
Fucking badass. I think these sound awesome. There will be an NPC that you will walk with you, and they do talk quite a bit. Depending on the route progression, the story will be different, exactly like Guild Wars 2. If you want to enjoy the whole story, you have to rerun the dungeon a couple of times. That's awesome. My chat is guessing who that NPC.
Raubon.
Since there are a few routes, there are actually a lot of places inside the dungeon that are suited for screenshots. Ooh! Ooh! Ooh, that looks cool. We will add further variant dungeons later, not in every patch, but we have planned another 2 for 6.x. Okay, but there is more. Another battle content mode. Ooh, 4-player content, high difficulty. Whoa! Level 90 high difficulty challenge for 4-player parties. Party must comprise one. Oh, let's go, dude. Yo. Okay. Hold up. Straight up, hands down. Warrior's gonna be S tier. Warrior's gonna be S tier in here. They're gonna have to nerf. They're gonna have, well, not nerf.
So when World of Warcraft Shadowlands launched, there was a Bosja Zadnor style zone that was required content called the Maw, and tied to it there was a deep dungeon style zone-ish called Torghast. And initially those seemed really cool. They turned out a little differently than they were originally presented. Ian said some things that made us really excited about them, and those things didn't necessarily turn out true. But when I was originally in it, all I heard was major complaints about that content. And I was like, I don't get it. Like, originally, I'm kind of liking them. And then somebody finally said it in one of the videos or a comment or something, that I was watching all this content. I was hanging out in streams and all that. And somebody goes, well, the only people who like it are druids. I was like, oh, because I'm a druid. So I assume what's going to happen is people are going to go, Criterion dungeons are too hard, the trash. The moment your healer starts to get behind, you just get wiped. And I'm going to be like, I'm having such a good time. They're like, well, yeah, warriors are having a good time. Oh. So, just be warned in advance that if I really like this content and you don't, it's probably because I'm a warrior and I've been given the premier experience as I deserve.
But they're gonna have to change something because holy fucking shit, man. Warrior is gonna shit all over the other tanks. Oh my fucking god. Oh my, it's not even gonna be close.
My argument against how powerful Warrior felt in the early dungeons of Endwalker about being concerned about it, people were like, going into the first Savage tier, like, this is going to have to be nerfed. Not really, because in Savage content, it's mostly single target DPS, and a lot of what made that healing just outrageous is the way it works in an AoE pull. And so because dungeon content in this game doesn't matter, because we don't have like hard mode dungeons, you don't really need to worry about Warrior. So maybe it needs to be nerfed, maybe it doesn't, but ultimately like clearing dungeons in Final Fantasy doesn't matter. It's not like there's high difficulty challenge for 4-player parties or anything. Maybe at this point, Warrior might need like a little bit of a revisit, because he's right. We're gonna be gods in this content.
It's not even close. Warrior is so fucking good in dungeons, dude. It's just not even gonna be close, dude. Visually similar to variant dungeons, but overall structure, enemy strength are entirely different. Route is predetermined and no NPCs accompany you. I don't know what the loot's gonna be. I don't really care what the loot's gonna be. I want to do this regardless. Yo, this sounds awesome.
I hope the loot's purely cosmetic. I hope the loot is purely cosmetic. Make it like Ultimates. Purely cosmetic. Make it like the PvP sets. Purely cosmetic. I want people to do this because they want to do this. Because the moment you make this matter, well, I hope it like matches the extreme content. That immediately becomes something, especially with the 1 week delay, that becomes required by anybody that's doing early progression through the Savages. Those early weeks where you have limited access to the number of Savage pieces of gear. And the moment something becomes required, we now have resentment. Look at it with Hildy. Hildy is like some of the most beloved content in Final Fantasy XIV. And they said, hey, what if you guys had to clear Hildy for the first time in like the next 4 to 8 months to progress your relic, which doesn't really become gear relevant until the 0.5 patch? People are raging. So like, I hope this is utterly cosmetic. Less required than deep dungeons. Next deep dungeon's in 0.3, by the way.
Another dungeon being normal mode, the first dungeon Criterion being extreme. Whoa, and the second one is Savage? Holy shit.
Yeah, and these are the 0.25 patch. So if they're always on the half patch, they won't matter for the world first progressors because they will have cleared it. Where it will matter is for groups that are still somehow behind or people that are trying to switch to different roles. Because with 2 months, if you don't have more than one character and you spend your early lockouts, let's say your group clears Savage 5 and 6 week 1, which is already on week 2, and then you clear 3 by maybe like week 3 or 4 because you guys only raid 1 or 2 nights a week, and the third and the fourth boss are typically the harder jumps. There might be individual groups that suddenly feel like they need to do this because like, well, I put all my early Savage drops on my tank and now I'm trying to progress through the 4th fight on my healer. The moment it is gear, somebody will say it's required. So I think you guys already bring up a valid point to what I just said. I didn't mean it. And so what I just said 10 seconds ago, that this will feel like required content, you guys bring up a valid point. It's the 0.5 patch. Who cares? I am telling you, somebody will care. Somebody will care. The moment this is seen as any form of progression, even casual progression, well, it's technically better than the Algaia party, the Algaia 24-man. The moment it is even Tombstone equivalent, this will be seen as required by somebody. Well, I have to be able to get it because I'm trying to get up to 600 on all my classes, and this lets me get there 2 weeks faster. The moment this drops gear of any relevant item level, there's going to be complaints. It doesn't mean they won't do it. I just hope that it is cosmetic only. Cosmetic only. The moment you put an item level on it, somebody's going to feel that they should either be entitled to this or that they are being pressured into it. And if you just make it cosmetic only, then it's like, well, just let it go, man. Just let it go.
Yo, this sounds awesome. Another dungeons are high difficulty by default with Savage providing additional challenges. Oh my dude, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. I'm excited for that. I can't wait to Party Finder this. That's going to be fun. Parties of fewer than 4 players supplemented via matchmaking. Normal methods of resurrection are prohibited, but each player is granted a limited number of revival actions. Oh, shit. Okay, okay. So that means Red Mage isn't going to be anything like super special. That's good. Defeated enemies do not revive after party KO. Okay. Oh, then that means the trash is going to be hard. Ooh. Okay, okay, okay. Wow, so you can't even queue in for Savage. You have to preform. Damn, they're being serious. So if you die
That's how Deliberate works.
halfway more ball, we gotta continuous. Whoa! What? So is it just like you get 1 life and that's it? Woo! That might be hard, man. Holy shit. Oh my, yeah, it is. If the entire raid wipes, all the enemies will revive. Oh my god. If you don't beat the whole thing within a certain amount of time, oh, what a surprise. All enemies will be buffed. What? Got my attention now. I think it's funny that if you die, all the enemies get buffed. Let me tell you about how I'm not playing anything other than Warrior in that dungeon. We managed to implement a lot of different content with varying difficulties. I hope everyone can find the type of content they enjoy the most. So far, these Criterion dungeons sound absolutely amazing.
That is by far the content that I am most excited about. By far. In this, I think Island Sanctuary will be worth giving a shot. I'm looking forward to more story. You know, Noob Trial's great. 4 more Pandemonium raids is delightful. Whether you just do normal or you do the Savage as well, there is a lot coming this patch cycle. This Tataru's Grand Endeavor, I still don't know what it is. I've cleared what they gave us, and I'm still confused. So across the board, I'm excited to be in the patch. But the variant Criterion, you know, this new dungeon format of story mode Extreme Savage is absolutely what has me the most pumped and will be where I put most of my effort, maybe, kinda.